Health campaigns offer their own set of unique challenges given the topic that you are attempting to influence people on. The end result of health campaigns is almost always behavior change. We aren't simply asking people to change how they think and feel about something. We really want them to engage in some behavior that we want them to have a healthy outcome. So it is a lot of times aligned with public health initiatives. There is some health concern that we have about the public at large or some societal level issue, and we are asking a number of people to act in coordination in order to have some benefit for societal good. So often when we think about those pro-social kinds of campaigns that aren't necessarily about some sort of product or marketing for a business, a lot of times we could think about health campaigns as really good examples of those. So when a lot of times we're focusing on health campaigns, we're often speaking to stakeholders and not just the individuals, right? Because when we think about the kinds of healthy behaviors we want people to engage in, the problem is that they might have the information, but they aren't doing it. Right? And the question is why? Well, they might not have someone who is influential affecting them. So stakeholders could be people in the media, could be celebrities, could be doctors, could be nurses, could be local elected officials. Those are the people we may be trying to influence with a health campaign so that there may be some policy that could be instituted that would make that healthy behavior kind of come to life. So it may be that we need to have a law passed so that people no longer do X because it's causing them harm. And we could convince people not to do it all we want, but they aren't going to change unless they have to. And so sometimes speaking to stakeholders is the way we can get this thing done. So in that kind of a nice little overview on what this really means, that we're talking about health communication, and health communication is the science of using communication to advance the health and well-being of people and populations. So it's that people and populations, right? The people as a group rather than seeking to target an individual, right? It's no longer that interpersonal level. Health campaigns are about getting what a lot of people are doing and try to get a lot of people to change simultaneously. Now, one of the issues that you run into with health campaigns is that the idea of what is healthy or health itself kind of changes over time. So if I were to ask you to picture someone who is healthy, we have sort of that natural vision, someone who is relatively thin, there might be some muscle tone, they look like they're active, but in reality, that's not necessarily accurate, right? So there has been a movement called Healthy at Any Weight. And so you see this example from covers of Cosmos saying, like, this is what healthy, right? Wellness isn't a one-size-fit-all. You can be healthy at any size, and you can be unhealthy at any size. You might see someone who looks like they're fit and they're thin, but they have extremely high blood pressure, they're diabetic, and right, all sorts of issues, whereas someone who might be considered plus size, whatever that means anymore, who could be far more flexible, who are active, who are eating healthy, who's their all of their high blood pressure and all of that, right, could be excellent, right? Just because someone looks a certain way doesn't mean that they're healthy, right? So the idea of health continues to evolve, and what are healthy behaviors continues to adjust. So that is a real struggle with health communication campaigns, because one year we're telling them to do something because this is what we know to be healthy, and in 5 years we might be telling them, don't do that thing that we told you to do last time because that is no longer healthy. And so that creates some trust issues in the population. But when we talk about health issues, we are usually dealing with issues that don't go away, right? Sometimes we would generate a campaign because X thing is happening and we can make it stop, right? So, for instance, we could think about an environmental campaign. Company X is dumping waste in the local lake. We can have a campaign to get that to stop, right? That is an acute problem. A systemic problem is something that is enduring over time that doesn't simply go away easily. And so health concerns are enduring problems. People don't eat healthy, right? They don't eat well. They eat a lot of junk because it's convenient and it's bad for them. And we can tell them not to, but they're going to do it anyway. And there is a certain amount of expectation of failure year after year after year. And we can look at any of those sort of well-known or well-recognized campaigns that are out there, right? The Truth Initiative, the Truth Campaign, right, is a really good example of this, trying to get people not to smoke. They've been doing this for a long time, and people still smoke, right? It's, if we were so good at this, we would run this for 6 months and then we would solve, right? Like we did it, we cured cancer, right? It doesn't work like that, right? It takes time, it takes effort, and there's a certain amount that we're not going to get it done. Part of that is the behaviors that we're up against are difficult to change, but there are other factors that we always have to work in. So in 2021, the tobacco industry spent over $8 billion on advertising expenditures on cigarettes alone. The Truth Initiative, I don't know the budget off the top of my head, but I can guarantee you it's nowhere near $8 billion. So you're fighting a losing battle, but you continue to fight the fight because it's the right thing to do. So at a certain point, it becomes a question of cost versus reward. How much are we spending on this campaign, and how much of an outcome are we actually getting? Are we making progress year after year? How much are we spending? At a certain point, do we say, we just aren't going to be able to stop you from smoking, and we are going to have to accept that people are going to do things that we know causes very clear and specific health outcomes that we want to avoid. We may just have to accept that sometimes. So the thing that is mentioned in the chapter in almost any kind of health campaign literature is the health belief model. This is really derived from the public health research, and it is used in health communication campaigns extensively. And it basically says that when we start on the left-hand side, you have these factors that people have, right? These are the kind of individual differences that people have, right? Whether that be demographics, age, education, socioeconomic status. You have psychological characteristics, your personality, kind of who you are, how intelligent you are, how much you consume things. Peer pressure, for instance, is the one that's labeled here. Those things influence how you recognize a perceived threat and how you evaluate a particular behavior, and that includes some subcomponents. As you can see here, threat consists of how severe you think the problem is and whether it's actually going to affect you, that being susceptibility. And then when you evaluate the behavior, you identify their perceived benefits and what perceived barriers are there to you actually engaging in the behavior. So essentially, you evaluate, do I see that my doing this behavior causes me problems? And if I were to change, would I get something out of it? And am I capable of doing it? So all of that leads to the likelihood that you're going to engage in health behavior, and factors like self-efficacy. Do I feel like I am a capable person of doing these things? And are there cues to act? So it's not just I don't just wake up one day and think, you know what, I'm no longer going to eat fried foods. That's not something that someone does, right? There needs to be something that compels them to make this choice. So when we engage in health campaigns and we think about the health belief model, we think, where are we lacking? So it may be that people perceive barriers, and so our efforts and our initial set of messages may focus on the barriers, and we may solve that problem, but then it turns into people don't feel a degree of self-efficacy. They don't feel capable, and so we have to build up that portion of it, and then we have to really drive home the cue to action. So it allows us to identify where to target and where people are falling short. So one piece that is certainly useful to think about when we're talking about health campaigns, right? So if thinking back that health belief model, you had sort of the pros and the cons are present. But when we think about encouraging people to do something for themselves, some people are encouraged by um, what is the benefit, and some people are more concerned about what negative thing am I going to avoid. So kind of the question is, what are you really trying to get people to do? Are you trying to get them to stop doing something that's bad for them, right? Stop drinking carbonated water. If that is your objective, you can tell them here are the health benefits to no longer drinking it, or you can tell them here are the negative health consequences from continuing to drink carbonated water, right? Those are two very different kinds of things. And so we're trying to think about what kind of message tends to work, right? So they're doing the same thing, but some people respond to one versus the other. So am I telling you, right, don't do this thing or bad things will happen to you? Or am I telling you that do this thing and good things will happen for you? So one of the issues that you run into is that we may use something like the health belief model and find what seems to work in general, but it may inevitably just not be successful for half the population because they are a negative consequence avoidant personality, and some people are all about seeking positive outcomes kind of personality. It's essentially, are you a glass half full or half empty person, right? What do you need to hear in order to get you to do something? And health campaigns have to focus on that, right? A lot of times we say, here are these, it's terrible, you can't do this. And then that doesn't move the needle for some people. So you have to take into account the kinds of message strategies that you might use. So when you are looking at a health campaign, what kinds of things they need to include to make sure they're going to be successful? Well, you need to have a behavior request. You need to tell them what you want them to do. You need to emphasize a time at which they are to do that, or a frequency, as well as an amount. You can't just simply say, you should eat healthy. So if I were to say, I'm going to exercise more, well, what does that mean, right? So tomorrow I'm going to take the stairs instead of the elevator. And then the rest of my life I won't take any more stairs. Well, I took the stairs one more time while I exercised more. Is that really satisfying the goal of your campaign of getting me to exercise more? As opposed to saying, I will go to the gym on Tuesday mornings for an hour, right? That is a very specific request that I can realistically do, as well as a specific goal for someone to monitor, right? So telling someone to do something in general is never going to get people to engage in a consistent behavior modification towards your health goal if they don't have something specific to follow, right? So you should eat healthy, right? So tonight you're going to have a vegetable on your pizza and you're going to eat a whole pizza. Well, is that healthy? No, you ate a whole pizza, right? That's not healthy, but it's healthier than what you were doing, I guess. But that's clearly not in the spirit of what I wanted you to do. So it may be limit the number of slices of pizza you eat to 2, right? That would be a healthier option than eating the entire pizza, right? And so I have to be specific about the thing that I want you to do. So if we think about a lot of the campaigns, right? Don't smoke. Well, that's not easy, right? If you are literally addicted to nicotine, it's difficult for you to do. And so simply saying like, don't do it, well, how, right? So this is kind of one of the things that a lot of health campaigns tend to lack, is providing that how and what specifically you want them to do. So if you want to be successful, you have to focus on those kinds of pieces of the message.